Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Read Step. I am your host, Isaiah Ruiz, and today we are going to get into a wild card weekend. It is currently 12:03 where I'm at, so that means that today is officially the day that the Rams and the Vikings play. Should be a good game. That game has been moved to State Farm. What do they call it? Where the Arizona Cardinals play. That's where they're going to be playing at. Obviously, with the fires, we want to send my condolences out to everybody that has had to unfortunately deal with that. So many people lost their families, or not, sorry, lost their homes. Some people, there have been some people who have died. It's just a tragic thing to see, especially being from LA. Now, I'm not exactly from the parts, like I'm not from the Palisades or Altadena or some of those other places that are really affected, but still, it's LA. We're a very tight knit group and community, believe it or not. There's so many communities within LA, but all together, it really is a very tight knit group, and it is a community that in a city that really takes a lot of passion in where we're from. And times like this, we do the best we can to help others and to help. As much as we can. When you lose your home, you lose your home, and it's just so unfortunate. It's heartbreaking. I know I have a friend whose family lives around somewhere in that area, and I've been checking up on him and his family, making sure that they're doing okay. Um, This is certain times where I do wish that I was back home because it would be whatever I could do. I wouldn't be able to donate a lot of money because I just don't make a whole lot of money myself. But I would donate time or anything I can do, donate clothes or anything. Which is probably I might actually still do that. I'll figure out a way to send it over there. But absolutely for sure. It's such a heartbreaking thing to have to witness every single day when I open Instagram or I turn on the news or I turn on TikTok, whatever the case may be, and it's sad, and like I said, just flat out heartbreaking, and it's very. I hope and pray that everybody who has to deal with that and has lost a home, there's only so much we can do, but I'm going to continue to pray for everybody that's involved, anybody that this has affected back home, and you know, hope and pray to God that our leaders back home can do whatever they can to rebuild not just the city, but the city and the community and all these places stronger and faster as they so promise to do. We'll see how that goes. But as far as how it pertains to the NFL, like I said, the Rams game, which was going to be played at SoFi, is now going to be played at State Farm. I know it's not State Farm Arena. State Farm. No. Is it just called State Farm Stadium? I'm so sorry. Yeah, State Farm Stadium. Yes, where the Arizona Cardinals play. So it's going to be played there as close to LA as possible. But it's going to be, really is, at the end of the day, it's going to be a neutral site. I would imagine that people who did buy tickets to the game are going to be able to go to the game in Arizona. So hopefully you see a lot of LA Ram fans there supporting. But it is definitely it's going to be a very good game. It should be a good game, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. But we'll start off with the Texans versus the Chargers and the other LA team. And I gotta say, I know when I was talking about a couple weeks ago, I was talking about how Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. I believe in him, and I think with Jim Harbaugh, he's going to be come back of a resurgence of being a great quarterback, as being one of the great quarterbacks in the league. And boy, oh boy, did I look like I was wrong. Did I look like I was wrong in that first official wild card game of the NFL postseason? Because, we'll just get right into it. 242 yards, a touchdown, and 4 interceptions. I believe one or two of those might have been brought back as far as, a pick six. J.K. Dobbins, 9 carries, 26 yards. Thank God I already won my fantasy league. Lad McConkey, breakout star, 197 yards, 1 touchdown. He's going to be a stud for the Chargers for a very long time. He's a receiver that they desperately needed. Because they really didn't have any solidified wide receiver ones in that building, and it looks like he's their wide receiver one right now. But just overall, just a terrible game for the Chargers. Yeah, you finally had a touchdown in the game, but it was really just kicking field goals throughout the entire game. Meanwhile, you got the Houston Texans over here. We're just gonna go straight to them. C.J. Stroud, 282, a touchdown, a pick. Pretty good game for him. Not the greatest, but not the worst. They did enough, and they really I think this game collectively as a whole for the Texans, special teams, and I'll get to that in a minute. Special teams, defensively and offensively, all came together to really end up blowing out the Chargers 32-12. Joe Mixon had a good game, 25 carries, 106 yards, won a touchdown. Nico Collins, by default, over the past few years, with his teammates dealing with injuries at the wide receiver position, really established himself as a true number one wide receiver in the league, not just in the Texans. So he had a pretty good game, 122 yards on 7 catches and a touchdown. And but defensively, I mean, he was just a really good game. Will Anderson Jr., one of the best outside linebackers in the NFL, 1.5 sacks. He had 1.5 sacks by Mario Edwards, a sack by Danico Autry. Anybody who you said you had a touchdown by Eric Murray. You had you had a defensive touchdown. And one of my favorite parts about this entire game, and I saw a couple of highlights of him, was the special teams for the Texans. I want to give a shout out to my former teammate, Fullerton College, all-time just great player, D'Angelo Ross. He had a blocked punt in the game, and then he later went and returned, I believe, a blocked field goal, the blocked PAT for, I think, 2 points or a touch, whatever the case may be. D'Angelo Ross, shout out to you, man. Always supporting you. Still got your jersey, everything. Try to watch your games as much as possible. Always great to see a former Fullerton College Hornet do well. So, yeah, the Texans just ended up going and just rolling through the Chargers. And it was a great game by them. Great game by them. They look, granted, it was the Chargers, so we'll see exactly how the Texans are going to do going forward. But they're still a good team. I still believe in D'Amico Ryans. I still believe in C.J. Stroud, one of the two up-and-coming IE players in the National Football League. We'll get to the other one a little bit later in the show. So overall, I mean, if I'm the Texans, I'm feeling good going into the divisional round. They're going to go ahead and play where was it? I just had it. They're going to go and play the Chiefs, and that's going to be a rematch of, I believe, 4 years ago. Different quarterback, different team that time, but they're going to go ahead and play the Chiefs in this divisional round. And we'll see how they do. I got the Chiefs winning that game for obvious reasons, but, I mean, the Texans are the Texans. It's still going to be up and coming. Regardless if they were to lose this game against the Chiefs, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. C.J. Stroud is only going to get better from here. Didn't have quite the bit of a splash as he did in his rookie year last year, but I believe in C.J. Stroud. I'm a huge fan of his. And I think that they can do a pretty good job against the Chiefs, especially if they could do what they did defensively. They're going to have a really good shot to beat KC. So we'll see how that happens. That's going to be on January 18th at 2:30 p.m. my time. I'm in Missoula, Montana, so wherever you're at, you can look it up. The next game. My Steelers-Ravens. Now, I obviously predicted the Ravens to win last time, although I was hopeful that we could beat them, and I really thought we could. I'm not. You know what? For this. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me give you guys the numbers. Russell Wilson had 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren just did not really do much. That Ravens defense, to their credit, did a hell of a job. George Pickens led in receiving with 87 yards and a touchdown. Van Jefferson also had a touchdown. And that's about as much as I'm going to say about these sorry-ass Steelers. Lamar Jackson, though, probably going to be get his third MVP, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, the beast, 26 carries, 186 yards. We're going to really get into this soon. 2 touchdowns. Lamar also had 81 yards on the ground. Isaiah Likely led in receiving with 53 yards and 3 catches. Bateman had a touchdown. Justice Hill had a touchdown. Okay, I'm just going to skip the whole analysis and breakdown of how I felt like this game was. I'm just going to go straight into it, going on a whole rant. I have not probably ever, as a Steeler fan until this very fucking game, seen a team in Pittsburgh, as the Pittsburgh Steelers, look so lifeless, look so unpassionate, however it's supposed to be said, look so like they didn't want to be there. There was no fight, there was no drive, there was no hunger, there was no out for bad blood. There was nothing from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it just looked like they not only gave up on the season, but they gave up on the team. I don't know what happened. We started off the season going 10-3, and we just lost our 5th straight game in a row. This has been one of the worst seasons I have seen for my Pittsburgh Steelers in a long time. It started off as one of the best seasons I've seen for my Steelers in a long time. I thought we were going to, by the time we were 10-3, I'm like, shit, we for sure going to win 11 games, but I could see us winning 12, 13, maybe 14 games. And that quickly went out the door. I don't know what it is, but clearly Russell Wilson isn't the answer. He didn't have a bad game, but he's not the answer. Justin Fields, I kind of wish we gave him a little bit more time, but I don't think he's going to be the answer because I don't think he's able to make some of these deep throws like even like Russell Wilson can make. The Steelers are going to need to seriously do some soul searching this offseason, and I'm just speaking as a fan. Mike Tomlin might not be the guy, and I'm sorry, but I am advocating that he does be let go. I think it's time, and I think it's time to move in a different direction. This is an offensively driven league now. You look at the guys that have won Super Bowls. Andy Reid, okay? Andy Reid. Bill, and I'll keep it brief about Bill Belichick, but he won the most amount of Super Bowls in this whole quarter century. We're officially in a quarter century, the most Super Bowls in this quarter century. He was a defensive guy, yes, but he knew how to break down a defense from an offensive perspective and knew how important it was to be on offense, especially with Tom Brady. You just need to have an offensive mind. You look at some of the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, but also, you have guys who are leading that team like Campbell, but Ben Johnson's one of the best offensive coordinator, one of the best offensive minds in the league. You look at Sean Payton, brought the Denver Broncos back in his second year to the playoffs. You look at, some of these other teams, you could just see it. The Ravens are really, yes, they're always going to have a pretty good to a great defense, much like the Steelers. But they know how to figure out the offense. They figured it out. The Buffalo Bills, they have figured out the offense. We already talked about the Lions. The Vikings, who is the Vikings head coach really quick? I know his face, obviously. Vikings head Kevin O'Connell, one of the best offensive coordinators before he took that job. He has an offensive mind. We see what they can do, especially with Sam Darnold now at the helm. You have the Buccaneers, the Commanders. Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys last year in the past few years, but again, coaches that can adapt and know how good or how important really an offense is and can really utilize that, those are the teams that are going to win in this day and age. And I'm sorry, but Mike Tomlin is just not an offensive-minded guy. He really isn't at all. Yeah, sure, anybody can say like, oh yeah, we need a quarterback, but what have we done to go out and get a quarterback? We don't. One of the things that also pisses me off about the Pittsburgh Steelers, we take no risks. We are one of the most conservative fucking teams I have ever seen, like ever. There's no big trades, no trade. We traded up once in the draft, and it looked like it was gonna turn out to be good for us, but it wasn't. That was when we drafted Devin Bush. He got a torn ACL, and he was never the same player after that. But even then, it was for Devin Bush, a linebacker. And you can make the argument, well, we had Big Ben. Okay, but still. We don't make any trades in the draft. We're going to be fucking stuck again with another 20 to 30 pick and somewhere in that range as far as which pick in the first round of 8 and each round of the draft. Why? It makes no sense. What pisses me off is you would think that the Steelers, year in and year out, playoffs, but you get ass whoop. What is the point of making the playoffs if you're going to go get your ass whooped, have nothing to show for it, basically didn't even need to be there, and on top of that, you don't have anything to show for in the draft because you don't have a top 10, top 15 pick. It's mind-blowing to me. And look at some of the quarterbacks that are coming out this year. Some people are skeptical about them, whether it be Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, anybody else that might be coming out of the draft. I believe Dylan Gabriel might be coming out of the draft too. But, shit, dude. Put yourself in a position to possibly get these guys. If I'm the owner of the Steelers, I will say we have great ownership still, but we need to start dropping our fucking balls and start fucking making some actual changes because this is it. The time is now. You have George Pickens, who is, I don't care what anybody says. People could talk about all the time, oh, he's a crash out or he's not a good receiver. No, not that he's not a good receiver, but he's not worth it. To me, honestly, What I like about him, and this is something that I believe he's worked on. He shows up when he's healthy. He loves being a part of the team. He loves his teammates, and he makes big plays. People like to compare it to Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown quit on the Steelers when Juju Smith won the team MVP back in 2017. I just don't see George Pickens. I don't see him doing that, to be quite honest with you. If he does end up turning into that one day, whatever, that's one day down the road. But right now, he's outside of our defense. Offensively, he's our best offensive player. So you have George Pickens, our offensive line. We're building our offensive line still. Broderick Jones took a bit of a step back, quite a bit of a step back this year. I'm not opposed to continuing to build the offensive line through the draft, but it's like, dude, again, going back to the same thing, we don't have the high draft picks to show for these playoff games that we're in, and it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense to try to fight. Oh, well, I always hear Mike all the time say, well, we're not that type of team. Motherfucker, you got to start being that type of team. If you have nothing to show in the postseason for your losses, your incompetence of an offense, I'm sorry, but it's not going to go. Arthur Smith, he can get out too. He can go back, be a coach in college or high school. I don't care what he does. But he is not going to, I sincerely hope he's not back as the offensive coordinator for the Steelers next year. I sincerely hope not. Our offense is too predictable. We make too many stupid plays. The play of the game that I saw, and I had to turn my TV off early, the play of the game that really pissed me off after the 15 straight runs, after the 3 straight read option plays that went for first downs, the number one thing that pissed me off as a fucking fan, fourth, I don't give a shit if I don't care where on the field it's at. 4th and inches and you punt the fucking ball away. Oh, hell no. I knew the Steelers gave up and Mike Tomlin gave up as soon as he did that. That is like the 3rd or 4th time I've seen that this year, where it's like 4th and inches, 4th and a really short 1 yard. Nah, let's punt the ball away. Why? How in the fuck? How does it make sense? You have that close. You understand you understand how important this game is, and you're gonna punt the ball on 4th and inches? Nah, bro. Nah, that was the deal breaker for me. I'm sorry. Mike Tomlin's been the coach for the Steelers for almost as long as I've been alive. But it's time to move on. It's time to go get somebody else. We need to get another coach, and he needs to be an offensive-minded coach. He's gonna find a job ASAP as possible, like yesterday. He's gonna be fine. I don't feel bad. He's gonna be fine. He can go coach in Chicago. He can go coach at some of these other teams that really need to rebuild. But I don't want him coaching the Steelers anymore. I really don't, and it's unfortunate because I like him as a coach. He's a good leader of men, that he is, and he's a very matter-of-fact person, and that's something that we need in the locker room because our locker room is still young. But more than anything, sports, a wise man once said, sports has a very short menu. It's wins and losses. And the fact of the matter is that Steelers just don't win. They don't. You could win in the regular season, but this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, as Teddy Bruschi said. I saw him say this on ESPN. The standard is the standard. Mike Tomlin has said that I don't know how many times. The standard is the fucking standard, and that standard is Super Bowls. And if you're not even getting playoff wins, let alone going to Super Bowls, then you don't deserve to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not a fan of a LA Chargers. I'm not a fan of the Commanders. No offense to the Commanders, we're going to talk about them later. I'm not a fan of the Panthers. I'm not a fan of the Rams, despite their recent success out of all these teams I mentioned. No, there's a standard with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's deep playoff runs and Super Bowl appearances. And if you're not getting there, you're not even winning playoff games. Like the last time that they won a playoff game, I was in junior college. I wasn't even 20 yet. I was not even 20 years old yet the last time they won a playoff game. I'm 26. I'm about to be 27 in 3 fucking months. No, dude, I'm sorry. Anybody who was going to be an apologist for Mike Tomlin, I love the guy to death. I don't know him personally, but I love what he's shown to be as far as a leader. But it's time to move on. It's time for the Steelers to drop a pair and let him go and go find an offensive coach. Because I'm telling you right now, this is not going to cut it. I watched that game and I was like, it was one of those games. Every fan's been through it. it was one of those games where you watch it and you're like, damn, like, yeah, there's some like this is it for somebody or something. And it really felt like this was the end. Like this is it. This is the end for Mike Tomlin, and it should be, and I hope so. I'm not saying I hope so as in, you know, I never wish for anybody to lose their job because I never would do that. But what I'm saying is that I'm just saying from a Steelers fan perspective, when I say that, I mean, it's time to move on to somebody who is way more offensive minded, somebody who's not going to resort to an offensive coordinator to call the plays, or I prefer it. But if you were to have somebody like Ben Johnson, like an offensive coordinator like that, yes, we had Dick LeBeau for I don't know how many years. Guys like that, Hall of Fame coaches like that, yes, okay, yes, that you resort to them. But this is just unacceptable. It's so unacceptable. This score, 14-28, felt like fucking 50-7. I swear to God. You heard me mention it earlier. I haven't even talked about the fact that the Baltimore Ravens early in this game ran 3 straight, the same exact, I kid you not, the same exact plays of a read option, a simple read option. It looked like I was watching them just toy with the Steelers. When you run the same play over and over again, you know when people typically do that? It's when they play video games. It's when they're playing Madden or NCAA college football. That's when you see the type of stuff like that happen. Not professionally in the NFL where they just run the same play because, well, you guys can't stop it and there's nothing you guys are going to do about it. That's embarrassing. For the Steelers defense, that's embarrassing. 186 yards by Derrick Henry. He's a beast and he's going to probably be, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer one day, especially if they were to go and win the Super Bowl. But 100 and then 85 yards by Lamar Jackson. Nah, man. Like, I didn't expect fully to, because the Ravens just really caught fire these last few games, apart from all year, because I know we beat them earlier in the year. But this is just unacceptable. Like, if we really battled it out, you know, whatever. We went on chip shot field goal, last second touchdown, heartbreaking still, but whatever, fine. But there was no heart, nothing. 15 straight plays, by the way, where they run the ball down the throat of the Steelers. Some people on that, see, from my perspective, you know, when I played football, I was never a star player. I was not even that good. But I know enough to know when you run the ball 15, when you allow a team to run the ball 15 straight times on you, people on that defense don't give a fuck about what happens. They don't want to be there. They don't care. Nobody on this team looked like they wanted to be there. Minka always shows up. TJ always shows up. Cameron Hayward, as old as he is, I love Cameron Hayward. That dude showed up. First team All-Pro, by the way, this year, great year for him, obviously. Those guys always, Patrick Queen showed up. Our linebackers typically do. Some of those guys on the back end, they need to go. And that's another thing that pisses me off. We need to have better corners and safeties. It can't just be Minka. It cannot just be Joey Porter. And Joey Porter sometimes throughout this year has pissed me off too. Still a great young player, one of the best corners we've had in a long time. And he's still young. He's still going to get better and evolve. I believe in him. He just needs to clean up a lot of things like holding and a lot. He's very physical, which is a good thing, but it's got him in trouble a lot this year. And you got some people talking about, oh, just blow it up. Let's trade Minka and TJ. That doesn't make no sense. Anybody said that is fucking stupid. Nobody's going to trade Minka or TJ or Cameron Hayward. No, that is not the answer. What you do is you get rid of the players that need to be get rid of. We need to get an offensive coach. Tomlin's got to go. It's time for a change. It is time. And the Steelers are always the last ones to go and make changes like that because they like to stay safe. They like to stay conservative. They like to stay with what works. Nothing has worked in the past 7 years. Before 2016 and before that, it was like shit. Killer Bees, or even before the Killer Bees, we're going to make a good playoff run because we got solid guys on offense, solid guys on defense. I mean, defensively, when we were going on all those Super Bowl runs in the 2000s, we really had only one star player and one emerging star player in James Harrison, but the one star player was Troy Polamalu. We have currently right now Minka Fitzpatrick, who has been one of the best players in the NFL in general, not just defensive. One of the best players in the NFL. We got TJ Watt consecutively year after year after year, one of the top 10 to top 5 players in the NFL perennially. Cam Hayward, who also one of the best players in the NFL. Not to mention, again, Patrick Queen last year when he was with the Ravens came off his best year and he came in. It's another star player that we brought in. And we just could, like, I don't get that. Those teams in the 2000s where maybe had one or maybe two star players. Everybody on that defense were grown ass men. Ferrier, Hampton, Aaron, Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark, Madden, Ike Taylor, Lamar Woodley. I mean, good Lord, the fucking Larry Foote, the list went on. And those are dudes that came and showed up and showed out. They were going to be physical, smash mouth. You're not running the ball on us. And this team, I don't understand it. It's a slap in the face to guys like Cam Hayward, who have been put in a lot of time, knows a lot of those old routes, because he got drafted, I think, pretty sure got drafted in 2010. And there's just no heart. There's no heart. There's no Steelers pride. There's no steel curtain defense pride. There's nothing, no fight, nothing. Nothing about this team. Just nothing. It all reeks of just, we suck, we don't care, we don't want to be here, we don't even want to show up. They did not show up yesterday at all. Mainly the defense and the offense too, but the offense still needs some help to work on. But, you know, some people also talk about, you know, our running back situation. Warren and Najee Smith, I still think are pretty good combination backs that complement each other well. It's just our offensive line is young, but I do like that we're drafting off our offensive line once again. We're building our offensive line through the draft, and we have been for a very long time, and that's how I like it. It's going to take time, though. George Pickens, on many, many rosters, is a wide receiver one, just like ours. But I would love to have another wide receiver one or a solid wide receiver two and have both, because Pickens can do a lot physically and athletically. He can do more than most. But I mean, if you're going to be double or triple covered, because you're the only real weapon on the perimeter for him to, for you as a team, an opposing team to worry about, that kind of, I mean, there's not much Steelers can do. Our second and third best receivers was Mike Williams, who did a pretty good job, showed up for a few plays. But Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, and Calvin Austin. I love Calvin Austin. Don't get me wrong, I really do. Small school guy, and he's a small guy himself, I think at 5'9". But he's a slot receiver. I'm sorry, but he's a slot receiver. A really good slot receiver at that. He's a really, dude's a playmaker. At his size, he's still a playmaker. But we can't, like, no, dude, like, there needs to be some serious changes with our coaching staff in this offense. Arthur Smith got to go. Mike Tomlin, it's time to move on. And I think it's time, we need to draft a quarterback in April with our first round pick. And I sincerely hope we do whatever we can to trade up for a top 5, top 10 pick, because we need a quarterback. And we need one yesterday. Quite literally. We needed one last year. I can't with the Steelers. I can't. No heart, no fight, no passion, lack of commitment, don't want to win, don't care about it. They just don't care. That's all I got to say about the Steelers. Steeler game. Moving on to the Bills and Broncos. I mean, this is going to be a short, I'm not going to, well, let's get into it. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on this one. It was a pretty dominating game by the Bills, as many expected. 31-7, your Buffalo Bills blow out the Broncos in their wild card game. Bo Nix, after a terrific rookie year, he went 144 yards, 1 touchdown. He also led in rushing with 43 yards. You had Cortland Sutton, 75 catches, and Troy Franklin, who's going to really come into his own over these next few years as a receiver. He was a teammate of Bo Nix in college. Both played at Oregon. Troy Franklin, I thought could have been really a first-round pick, late first-round pick at this rest of his draft. He's a really good player, really fast, blow the top off the defenses, which is basically what he did on that one touchdown they got. But kind of ends a pretty good year. I'm not gonna lie, pretty good year for the Denver Broncos. Last year was not very good, to say the least, with Russell Wilson. But this year they really turned it around. I mean, 10-7. My mind is just all. Sorry about that, guys. Sean Payton finally found his guy, finally found his quarterback, and I think he has built a pretty good relationship with Bo Nix. So, as from a From a football fan perspective, I'm excited to see what the Denver Broncos can do over the next 4 years with those two, Bo Nix and Sean Payton. But for now, 10-7 is pretty much a good indicator of who exactly they were, and that's what they were, a 10-7 team. I would be really excited about that defense. That defense is, despite what happened on over the weekend, the defense is looking amazing. Patrick Surtain, been one of the best corners in the league since he quite literally set foot in the NFL. Bonito had a pretty good year, but I mean, they're going against potentially another MVP guy, which is Josh Allen. And speaking of them, going over to the Bills, Josh Allen, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 46 yards on the ground. James Cook was cooking with 120 yards and a touchdown. Curtis Samuel was the leading receiver with 68 yards. He had a touchdown, and Ty Johnson also had a touchdown. Now, I talked about. I'm going to move on to the next game, while still talking about the Bills. I've said before that the Buffalo Bills really. I think the thing that I'm not going to say scares me because we're not playing them anymore. But the thing about the Buffalo Bills this year, is that they don't have a true number one receiver, but that has really worked in their favor. When you have a true number one receiver like Diggs, or anybody, I mean, Diggs, you could say, is kind of-ish, very little fallen off from what he once was. But, I mean, what I'm trying to say, production-wise aside, what I'm trying to say is you don't have an ego at the receiver position where you feel like you got to force the ball to them. You got to force the ball in certain situations. Josh Allen is literally playing with house money, and that's the best way I could describe it. He's available to throw it to anybody he wants. They run the ball very, very well. He runs the ball well himself. He can. Matter of fact, let's go back to it. He can get the ball to other guys because nobody else, quite frankly, if they don't get the ball, is going to feel like they are getting a lack of looks or lack of catches or lack of targets. And that's really boding well for them. I mean, 3 catches for 7. You have 3, 6 for Khalil Shakur, 3 for Kincaid, Dawson Knox 2, Ty Johnson 2, Matt Collins 1, Amari Cooper 2, Keon Coleman, the rookie 1. I mean, he's being able to throw the ball to a lot more different receivers, a lot more different options. And, when you're not going back to the locker room at halftime, you're not going back to the locker room at the end of the game, having to talk to your receiver. I would imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine, they're not getting the ball as much as they would want. You don't have to hear throw me the ball, or you got to give me the ball. I'm a playmaker. Sorry, give me Sorry, I'm going back. Yeah. You won't have to worry about going back and hearing no, I want the. We've heard over guys that were mic'd for games and things like that. Give me an opportunity. We're 1-on-1. I want the ball in my hands. Let me make a play. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And then it makes things awkward. And then it causes a rift. And then guys start talking. And then the media starts talking. I think Josh Allen finally is allowed to be free mentally as a player in the game. And he could just utilize all of his best weapons, which is quite literally everybody around him. Cook had an amazing year this year. Knox. Keon Coleman's a rookie, but you can bet that he's going to emerge as a pretty good receiver throughout his career. Amari Cooper is a really good receiver in the NFL, but he doesn't have the ego that most people have. So that I will give him. And it's allowed Josh Allen to have not only the best year of his career, but it's allowed the Buffalo Bills to really be a real threat for the first time to the Kansas City Chiefs and beating them if they ever do play them when that time comes. So, that's if I was anybody else going against the Bills, that's my biggest worry. Now there really is no option that you as an opponent are worrying about necessarily during film week or anything such of that nature, because instead of worrying about one guy, you're like, all right, as soon as we get this guy locked down, now we know they're going to go to the run game right here. No, now he's free to do whatever he wants. It's free play. It's child's play for him, and that's literally how it's been. He's either going to run it, he's going to throw it to you could call it on paper the worst receiver and make him look like a stud, or he's going to throw it to guys like Amari Cooper and remind you of the type of player that he is. He still be. So, Buffalo Bills, I would say, are the most dangerous because they also have a pretty good defense as well. That's kind of my 2 cents on the Buffalo Bills Denver Broncos game. I expect the Broncos next year to take another leap and be better than what they were this year. But it was a great start to the Bo Nix's career for sure. Sean Payton should feel good, should feel confident going into next year. These are the type of years, if you're a Denver Bronco fan, if you're a Denver Bronco, period, you know that this is year one of going to be a long, not a long process, but a pretty good process of building up a team to the point where eventually they're going to start really being able to contend for championships and deep playoff runs. So, yeah, Buffalo Bills win 31-7 over the Denver Broncos. Now, going over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Commanders game, versus the Commanders. Shout out to one of two. Shout out to one of two, the other IE kid, Jaden Daniels. Dude is a stud. I mean, when you're a rookie quarterback, CJ knows what it's like. Rookie quarterback, you go into the playoffs and you win a playoff game. Everybody's gonna be talking about you, and you are like literally creme de la creme, because a franchise has just hit on a franchise quarterback player, and it's even though we see guys getting drafted every year in the first round by quarterbacks, it's very rare that you see something like this where he not only lead your franchise to a 12-5 record, but you lead them to a playoff win in your first year ever. It's also Quinn's first year as the Commanders head coach. So, or is it first or second? I think it's his first. I could be wrong, but I think it's his first. Let's get into it. Jaden Daniels, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also led on the ground with 36 yards. De'Ami Brown, I hope I said his name right. Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, both had 89 yards each a pair. They also had a touchdown apiece. This is, I'm not going to lie, some of these games I wasn't able to watch because I don't have I don't have an NFL Sunday ticket anymore. I did have it during the season. And I do plan on using NFL Sunday ticket for years to come. But, I did, I kept up with certain parts of the game. I saw certain highlights. And when I first heard about the Commanders when they beat the Tampa Bay Bucks, first off, I'm not too surprised because, the Bucks, they did end the season 10-7. They did have a worse record than the Commanders. But I still expected the Bucks to win because, you got Baker Mayfield, you have Mike Evans, first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver. And they have a lot of experience together playing in the playoffs. Both of those guys do. And they don't have a bad team. And yeah, they're 10-7, but they're not that bad of a team. Last year they went and beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round. And this year they go and, unfortunately this time it's a little bit different. They come in, they try to defend home turf, and they couldn't do it. Baker Mayfield, he had 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 23 yards rushing. Mike Evans, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. Bucky Irving also had a receiving touchdown. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I really don't know where they would go from here other than, you could probably find some pieces. I'm not as sold on Bucky Irving as so many people are. Not that, okay, let me rephrase that. I get that he's a pretty good player. Don't get me wrong. He ran for over 1,100 yards. Yeah, I have it right here. He has 8 touchdowns, a little over 200 yards carry. But it just, I don't really see like Bucky Irving, and maybe they don't. I'm not saying that they need a running back, but I think they're a pretty big star player besides Mike Evans, away from being a really good team again. I think the defense also needs a little bit of help as well, but that's just me. But between the two teams, this should be an exciting time for the Washington Commanders. It should be an exciting time for the fans. They got a really big win. I can't even remember the last time that they had a playoff win. I think it's been a hot minute. So we'll see. We will see what happens and where they go from here, as they're going to go and take on. Who do they go and who do they go into? Wait, timeout. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like getting lost here. So they're going to go and take on the Lions, the Detroit Lions. Also on January 18th. That's going to be a tough game for them. I would imagine that the train stops there and they lose. But I've seen crazier things happen, so we'll see. But Commanders, really big win. Jaden Daniels, congratulations to you, sir, if you ever see this. Got a little soft spot for all of my California boys that are that are representing C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels. Another big win for him. Big one in his career, his rookie year. He's already looking into the divisional round playoff matchup in his only his first year. So they're going to go ahead and take on the Lions, the juggernaut of the Detroit Lions, in the divisional round. And lastly, before we talk about the Rams and Vikings tomorrow or sometime this week, the Eagles and the Packers. Yeah, the Eagles. I mean, that's probably what it is. We're talking about one of the top 5 teams in the whole NFL. You got, in my opinion, should have been really talked about a lot more as an MVP candidate in Saquon Barkley. But because he's a running back, they're not going to really give it to him. They're not going to give him that notoriety or that type of credit because people just rather talk about Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or whatever. My 2 front runners for MVP, my real front runners, and I'm not saying that Lamar and Josh don't deserve it because they do. They're awesome. But my 2 front runners would have been Saquon and Joe Burrow. That's just me. Anyways, so the Eagles go on. They go on and play the Green Bay Packers. They win that game 22-10. Jordan Love, 212 yards, 3 picks, no touchdowns. Yikes. Josh Jacobs, 81 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Reed, 46 yards, and none of their receivers caught a touchdown. Man, I really don't know where the Packers go from here, to be quite honest with you. They're not a bad team. I mean, despite the way they lost and how they lost, they're not a bad team. I still believe in Jordan Love. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They got a pretty good defense. They got a really good offense, in my opinion. Again, I know they had a tough day, but still got a really good offense. And they got a pretty good defense as well. So we'll see where they go from here. I really don't know where they go from here. I mean, you have a first-round pick. I would say I would go. Christian Watson hasn't panned out to be the type of player that they expect him to be, expected him to be. Maybe you go on offense, or maybe you go draft a defensive player, but I would go draft maybe another receiver or an offensive lineman from the Green Bay Packers. But hell of a season by them. I mean, they played in the toughest division in football this year in the NFC North, where you had the Vikings and the Lions. And the Bears there in the beginning looked like they were going to be pretty good. But, shout out to them. I think they had a pretty good year. They didn't have the year that they wanted, obviously, and they definitely didn't make it as far in the playoffs as they did last year. But I'm not holding my head down if I'm a Green Bay Packer or a Green Bay Packer fan. It's an unfortunate thing to watch, to get your team, to see your team get beat up. But again, you happen to run into the Philadelphia Eagles in your first round. Like, not many teams are going to go out and beat the Eagles in Philadelphia in the wild card round. And the only reason why they're in the freaking wild card to begin with is because you got the Vikings and the Lions, who took up the number 1 spot. I mean, hell, you have 3 number one potential seeded teams here in the NFC alone. You have the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles. I mean, one of those 3 teams, obviously, 2 of them, in actuality, were going to be wild card teams. And the Eagles were one of them. And if you happen to be somebody who runs it to the Eagles or the Vikings, you're going to be in for a tough matchup. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not hanging my head too much if I'm a Green Bay Packers fan or a Green Bay Packers player in general. Like, it is what it is. They're going to be back. They're going to be back, probably be better next year for sure. And Jordan Love is going to continue to grow as quarterback. Now, as far as the Eagles, I'm going to keep this one brief because the Eagles did what the Eagles did, what they always do. They've been doing all year. Jalen Hurts, 131 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, star of the game, 119 yards on 25 carries. Devontae Smith was the leading receiver with 55. Goddard and Dotson both had a touchdown each. The Philadelphia Eagles, I feel like, going back to literally what I just said, one of the teams I feel like they can beat the Vikings or the Lions in this playoff run if they ever do meet. One of the better teams in the entire league, in the entire NFL, one of the top 5 teams, in my opinion. It says a lot. I mean, the NFC is very, very stacked this year. It has been in a while. But in the AFC, I mean, you got the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs. And then, in my opinion, I would take the Eagles over the Vikings, and it would be the Eagles and the Lions. That would be the other 2 teams in the top 5 for me. But the Eagles are going to continue to dominate. They're going to be waiting on who they play, whether it's the Rams or the Vikings. My money is going to be on the Vikings. The Rams can go out and beat anybody, especially when they're healthy, but I don't see them getting past Minnesota in this one. I think it's going to be a tough matchup, and especially, like I said earlier in the video, You're not really gonna have home field advantage because it's not gonna be played at SoFi. It's gonna be now at State Farm Stadium where the Cardinals play. Um, and it does make a bit of a difference. I mean, it's a neutral site and it's gonna be a grass field, and the Rams are used to playing on turf, as you know. So we'll see what happens. But I think whether the Eagles are to go play the Rams or the Vikings, those are going to be two potential really good games right there. We're gonna have a set divisional round that's gonna be one for the ages. You got the Chiefs and the Texans. It's already set in the AFC. The Chiefs versus the Texans, the Bills versus the Ravens, and now we have the Lions versus the Commanders, and potentially the Eagles versus the Rams or Vikings. I mean, it doesn't get that much. It doesn't get much better than that. I'm excited to see what this division round looks like. I'm excited to see who's going to advance on to the championship rounds, and then we'll kind of go from there. So that's just my 2 cents for today. It's going to be on the wild card weekend. I gave you guys all the different stats, all the different scores for first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wild card games on the weekend, this past weekend, and now we got the Rams and Vikings today, which is, again, it's Monday for me. So, but and I also gave you guys my Steelers rant. So any Steelers fans out there, I have a feeling you guys feel the same way. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show, guys. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in. For those of you who do tune in, make sure you leave a like, comment, beat it up in the comments. If you guys would like to call me crazy or think I'm stupid for some of these takes, whatever it is, call me out on my bullshit. But yeah, great time to be a football fan, especially if you're a fan of any of these playoff teams. It's going to be an exciting divisional round. It was a pretty good wild card weekend for some of these teams. Not all. When I say some, I mean like Commanders, and that's pretty much it so far. Everybody else pretty much got blown out. But should be an exciting, though, divisional weekend. It should be a really good divisional weekend. So we'll see what happens there. But anyways, like I said, thank you guys. This is the Read Step. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to continue to be posting videos and releasing more content. Hopefully also should be able to start going live on stream on YouTube and be able to do that as well to kind of do live reactions to it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys also subscribe. It will really help my channel out. Really, really will. I'm trying to grow this channel, grow this community. So if you guys can go ahead and do that, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you next time. Peace out.